what do you think about how other countries live compared to how we live in the United States?
Well, first, I'll tell you Spain compared to America. And did you know that I'm actually a Mexican Cuban American?
I knew that because you're my son.
I know.
Yeah.
And anyway, so when I went to Spain and when we went there, we would walk like 5-6 miles a day and it would be crazy.
Yeah.
And we only have one bottle of water, one big one.
Do you know your papa and grandma and your abuelita, how hard they had to work to take care of their family?
No.
You don't really know?
No. Because I don't know how it is to be a parent because I'm not.
We do it because obviously we want to provide you guys, our kids, with the best stuff possible, right? A nice house to live in, make sure that you guys have food, make sure that you get good education.
I just don't know, how hard you work to do it.
And do you know just how some countries, so you know how we went to Mexico? What did you notice about that's different from Mexico than from here?
They have more taco places there.
They definitely have the best taco places, that's for sure.
Looks different.
Yeah. What about when we were driving when we crossed the border, when we were driving down to where we were staying?
What do you mean?
Well, what do you remember about that? What did it look like? What did you think about it?
It looked like a broken community.
Why do you say that?
Because it was all it wasn't pretty bright. It was dark and I saw fence broken.
Yeah, and you notice the roads are maybe not as nice, right?
Yeah.
And how did the buildings look?
They looked okay with color, but kind of broken.
Kind of broken, right?
Yeah.
So would you say that where we live is nicer, or is that nicer?
Where we live is nicer.
Yeah.
Because they probably didn't have enough money.
That's kind of the thing, right? Is in the United States, we're really lucky because this country
makes a lot of money.
It provides a lot for people that live here. And did you know that there's a lot of people from other countries that maybe it's kind of like Mexico where it looks broken or they don't have maybe as many opportunities or as many jobs. And so they really want to come to the United States.
Yeah. So anyway,
let me ask you something. So I was just trying to tell you, so people from other countries like India and China, Mexico, and a lot of different places, they don't have as many opportunities for them or their family. And so sometimes people want to come here because they think that they can make a better life for themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because if they come here, if they think they're making their life better, they pretty much are, because here, just in one city has a bunch of jobs to pick from. Just in one city has a lot of jobs to pick from.
Yeah. And a lot of countries and cities in other countries don't have that.
Yeah.
And so people, could you imagine some people have to leave their family, their abuelito and their abuelitas and their grandma and grandpas, and they go all the way across the country to come to the United States all by themselves, or maybe with one or two family members, and they basically have to start a new life. What do you think about that?
But I would never do that.
Why not?
I won't move to a different country, definitely.
Why?
Because I already have everything I need here.
Hi, Let's Ride listeners. It's your friend Paul Estrada. If you've gotten any value out of any of the episodes, I'm here to ask you to pause this episode and take a moment to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you're a real go-getter, please take a moment to leave a review of the podcast. I'd be indebted to you forever. Thank you for supporting and listening to the show and for going on this journey with us. Pause, subscribe, and let's ride. Our guest today moved 31 times before he turned 18, worked full-time in his parents' restaurant from the age of 13, and then traded entrepreneurship for a corporate career that led to the executive ranks of a multi-billion-dollar company. In today's episode, you'll hear the story of relentless perseverance from a childhood spent navigating language barriers and financial hardship to building a restaurant from the ground up to ultimately rising to vice president in the world of supply chain and logistics. It's a journey about grit, family sacrifice, and the mindset it takes to turn adversity into opportunity. Our guest today is Son Kwok.
Take me
Son, so we find ourselves here on a Friday night. I can tell you from my side, the kids are, in bed. Hopefully they stay in bed. And just here having a relaxing Friday evening. How are things looking on your end?
We just brushed our teeth and they are in pajamas. And I'm entrusting my older one to get her sister to bed rather soon. I mean,
Really?
Yeah. So
Wow.
They're 5 years apart. So I think a 5-year-old and a
Okay. 10-year-old.
I think I can trust my 10-year-old to do a reasonably good job. She know the routine.
I would love to have some help like that. So I'm a couple more years away from that, but I love that.
There you go.
That's fantastic. Well, hey, I've known you I was looking through your LinkedIn. I've known you for at least 13 years because I think that's how long you've been at Niagara.
Yep.
And so we've kind of gone on this journey together, the ups and downs of the everything in between. And so I just thought it'd be a really great time to connect with you. And so just really fascinated by your whole journey. And I think, you did not have a very linear career from the looks of it. It was a very windy path to get to where you're at. And I just want to give the listeners an opportunity to hear more about that. So yeah, if you could just start, I would love to just hear, this is actually one thing I know very little or nothing about you. And that is, how did you grow up? Like, can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing? What kind of town, city did you grow in? Who was Son Kwok as a boy?
Let's start with a statistic, right? So I was thinking the other day, this was probably a couple years ago. I think I counted from beginning to end how many times I moved. And the answer was 31 times in my life.
Wow.
So yeah, let's start there, right? So I was born in China. When I was 2, I moved with my family to Hong Kong. And then when I was 7 with the family, we moved to the U.S. So I was 9. And then since then, I lived for a few months with relatives in New York City, a few months with relatives in Springfield, Massachusetts. Spent 3 years in New Jersey, 2 different cities where my dad operated a restaurant. Moved to Ohio, where I started working full-time in the restaurant when I was 13. Did that all the way through college. After I got my undergrad, I worked a couple more years to save some money up, and then I opened my own restaurant in Toledo, Ohio, a couple hours away. And then after 2-3 years of that, then I went to corporate America, go for a few companies. I was a management trainee at Conway Freight, which is now XPO. And then I went back for my master. Then I was a consultant for lean logistics operation in Texas, Houston, to be exact. And I was at a forklift manufacturer. We make Mitsubishi and Caterpillar forklifts. And then Niagara. So kind of like a little zigzag across the whole U.S. And that's how I ended up with my 30 plus moves.
Okay, so that's a lot to unpack there. So let's go back a couple. Let's go back a couple steps. So then you were probably too young, I'm assuming, when your parents were kind of deciding, to move to the States and things like that. Did you recall, did they tell you anything about it beforehand? Did you kind of have a sense of like what's happening around you at that time?
No real conversation. I think I don't think my parents necessarily told me about it to get my opinion or anything, but it was really like, hey, we're doing this thing that's gonna get our family to a better spot, right? Everyone else in our family, everyone else in our village did it, right? Which is they're going to the U.S. and the process for immigration to the U.S. is like multi-year, and that's the reason why we were in Hong Kong. So they started the process while we were in China, and then they knew it was going to take several years. I don't know if they knew it was 7 years or whatever. So they say, you know what? While we're waiting, let's go to Hong Kong, which is the next best place to be.
Okay.
And we did that because at that time we didn't have much money, so it was really all about like, hey, where can we go where we can make a better living? It's really what drove the family, right? I think we were fortunate because I think if I were to look at a lot of folks I know right now who are in China or elsewhere, I don't think they had that urgency or need to move, right? It's like, hey, I'm okay. Right. Yes, the things might be rosy better, but I don't really necessarily need it or believe it maybe. And that's okay, right? But at that point, it's like, hey, there's nothing here, right? Everyone is leaps and bounds beyond where we are at. And do we really want to be left behind? Everyone's pretty competitive, right? And want the best. I think something you probably don't know, right? My dad had cancer pretty early on. I think he had cancer when he was 28. So that was when my brother was 1 year old. I'm lucky that he kept pushing forward and moving on with life. Otherwise, there would be no Son Kwok, right? He really didn't have any reason for himself or my mom to come to the U.S., right? It's really just for the kids, right? Hey, how do you want to set those kids up for success? And for them, it was a resounding yes.
Yeah.
And so they did what they need to do, and they really didn't stop to think what if and do all the analysis around it, because I think they couldn't really afford the analysis paralysis, right? It probably would have scared them. I honestly think, right? They just like move, just move
Right.
and do what you think is right. Don't think too much about it. It's kind of what they did. So here I am.
What you said really resonates, and because what we talk a lot on this podcast is actually exactly that, which is helping to get our kids ahead. And I find myself thinking about that often, and now thinking about it in the context of your family. It's like, because I was born here and because this is all I know, you sometimes lose track, or I guess understand what you're being given just by being here. I don't have any sense for that at all. I still find myself here and saying, man, I feel like I'm behind. I feel like I can't get my family ahead. And I think maybe I need to shift my perspective and say, hey, look, I'm already ahead, and this is just kind of icing on the cake.
No, for sure.
I don't know, but just thinking out loud. But all right, so then I just really can appreciate that. I think a lot of parents kind of have that mentality and are willing to do anything that they can for their kids. And so you come over, and now you're 9-10 years old. And you said what state did you go to? You said New York, I think I heard.
We basically were like refugees, right, to be honest. So we stayed with my brother's little sister in New York, because that's where we landed. We came through I think it was New Jersey or New Newark airports where we kind of port of entry, and then they took us in. We stayed with them for a month or so, cramped into their little apartment. Their whole family of 4. They already had they only had like a 1-bedroom apartment, right? It's like they already have a family of 4, and then here 4 of us, we cramp in there.
Jeez.
And just trying to find a footing. So we were there for maybe a few weeks, maybe a month or so. And then we then went to my mom's brother, who is in Springfield, Massachusetts. He has a house there. He has a restaurant. My dad went there we moved there. My dad started learning the trade, right? Like scrubbing the grills, mopping the floors, and just learning, doing what he can to earn a living, right? With my uncle, learning the trade. And then after a few months, I think it was probably half a year or so, my uncle basically lent us the money we need to open a super small restaurant in the worst neighborhood ever in Ohio. Not Ohio, but in New Jersey. It's called Passaic, New Jersey. And we now have our own little place and a place to start.
Off to the races, huh?
Off to the races.
Do you remember anything about things that were just very different to you that you were having a hard time acclimating yourself to, or was there do you remember the excitement, if there was excitement, or fear that was associated with it? What do you remember about that time?
I remember being in someone's house, right? It's something that I remember.
That you didn't know, right? I'm assuming you didn't.
Correct.
I mean, they were family, but you don't know them, right?
They were family. I don't know them, but at the end of the day, it's like you're in someone else's house, not your house, right? There's a difference when you're in your own house and in someone else's house. And I think growing up, whether we have a small place that we rented or whatnot, Hong Kong or elsewhere, it was at least our place, right? I would say like when I first came to the US, it's like, hey, I'm in someone else's place. I'm in my aunt's place. I'm in my uncle's place.
Right.
So I think that feeling is a different feeling. We end up having that feeling later on, but then at least when we had our own little restaurant in New Jersey, it was our place.
Right.
Nothing to brag about, but it was, hey, this is our place. So I think that was a particular feeling that I remember quite well.
And how was school? I mean, did you have had you already been learning English, or were you starting from scratch back then, or what?
Yeah, so I was I went all the way through 3rd grade in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong is pretty well educated. They teach English right from the get-go.
Okay.
So I did have some English, but honestly, coming to the US, it's not that helpful. It's like someone taking Spanish for 3 years here, and then you bring them to Mexico or any other Latin country.
That's me.
Like
that's how I feel.
Basically, you don't have much to go off of.
I know
right?
what you mean. Oh yeah.
So I got here, I know what's A and I know what's B, but I can't communicate, hey, I want to go bathroom, or hey, anything else, right? I was in ESL, right? Start off in ESL, and like whenever the teacher want to say anything to me, they go grab this other kid that's also Chinese, that's the only other Chinese in the whole school, right? And say, hey, come over here and help me translate this, right? That's really my life for the first half year or year or so in school, right? It's just basically you're mute, you're like, you might as well have been like, I don't know, you just don't know anything.
And did you feel like, why are we doing this? Or were you like, was there a level of excitement? Like, how did you feel about it?
I remember having a few situations, I can't remember the exact details, where I was frustrated and I probably, like expressed my frustration to my parents. I don't remember the details of it. I just kind of, the sense that I get, at least the feeling I get from those is like, look, we don't really have anything other choice. This is it. Like, deal with it, right? It's not something that we're choosing to do. And if it's hard for you, it's harder for us, right? The parents, again, my dad was not in good health. They know zero English. They are having a harder time than me. So I shut up pretty quickly, to be honest.
Right.
So.
Was there a point at which you did maybe felt like acclimated and you're like, okay, I see the vision here. I understand why we're doing this. And how long did something like that take?
A few years down, I don't know if it was like 3 years or however many years, I get acclimated to school. I have a few friends. I get in a place where, like life become easier in school. I think that's probably like 2-3 years down. And I think maybe when I was maybe 3 or 4 years down the road, I remember distinctly, I think I was in 7th grade. I graduated out of ESL like a year ago. And I'm in the regular class, and I think we were doing social studies or literature or something. I'm always been decent in being book smart. And what happened, I think, in that class was like the teacher was making a big fuss to the rest of the class and say, this kid, 4 years ago, he just landed here with zero English, and he has the best grade in literature. Uh-huh. You all should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
So I remember that distinctly. So I think that was a turning point. Maybe a little bit before that, it was a turning point. I remember that quite a bit. Yeah.
I could see myself being one of the kids in the classroom that was, grew up speaking English and getting a C in the class where you're making me look bad getting an A. So thanks for that, son. Was it just like your parents, the family made this huge sacrifice, you're acclimating yourself? Was there like a pressure, just like, I got to get well educated? Like, did they start establishing, or did you start establishing a plan that you have to prioritize education and, I'm going to do step 1, step 2, step 3, and this is kind of the end state of where I want to end up? Or like, how much did you or your family think through that sort of stuff?
I always felt that this was non-negotiable in my mind. Like getting a good education and doing well is non-negotiable. And honestly, because they told you that, or because you were driven that way? No, I don't think they ever say, hey, you got to go work hard in school. Honestly, I don't think they really have any context for it. Like, for background, my dad just graduated high school in his village. My mom did not even finish junior high. I think they were building a house in the area or something, and then she said, I gotta stay home to help cook snacks for the folks who's building the house. So she's dropped out of school a few years earlier. Okay. So like, the education is not their forte by any means. They never get involved. And honestly, I think part of it was they're too busy, and part of it is just like maybe a little ashamed of the fact that they really can't help even if they wanted to, right? There's not much that they can go off of. And I think that was actually a plus for me, because I think the fact that I was on my own, and I guess I know my parents are sacrificing for me to allow me to come here, right? I know that that's the reason. I need to make it work. I push myself. There's no outside push. I just push myself.
That's admirable, son. And having now knowing you, that makes perfect sense to me. I'm just kind of thinking about it in the contents of all the other people that are immigrating over whose parents are dealing with the same hardships and challenges, but just either unlucky or because of the way they were raised, or I'm not sure, but they don't have that self-drive. And then they end up not being educated, maybe getting themselves into some trouble and kind of not ending up in a very good place. So, I mean, what do you attribute that self-drive to? I mean, where did that come from? Like, how was that possible?
I don't know what the exact saying is, but it's like there's a saying around like something that's good may not be good, something that's bad may not be all bad, right? And I think just by being dealt a worse hand to begin with, I appreciated what I have and was pushed a little bit more than usual. I mean, the kids that you're describing where they didn't really maybe push themselves as hard or like went down a different path, I think they didn't really have to push, right? Their parents probably went out and worked somewhere else. They were left to do what they need to do at home. For me, my dad had a little tiny restaurant that didn't make much money, and there was always something to do, right? So, and the restaurant is connected through to the apartment that we live in. In fact, I actually climbed through. Behind the restaurant is a little alley, and the way we go to our apartment is climbing through the window to the apartment.
Wow! So
I climb in and out the window every day to go in and out of the restaurant.
So when I hear that, I just hear you were eating really well, is what I'm assuming. That
I ate really well all the way through. I mean, you have your own restaurant. This food is not a problem.
Yeah,
food is never a problem.
That's good.
But I think that was something that just made I see my parents all the time, and I have a place where I can put my energy. And I know that they could use my help. That way they can save a few pennies, to save a few dollars. That way they don't have to spend as much money paying other people to do whatever it is, whether it's cooking or cleaning or delivering food, right? I contribute. I was, throughout high school, I skipped school all the time to work in the restaurant. So the restaurant opens every day at 11, and every Friday I skip school. I was in trouble with the school because I was skipping all the time, but I think they kind of figured out that, hey, you know what, he's skipping to go work in his parents' place because they can afford to hire people. They kind of let me off the hook a little bit.
And by the way, you're getting an A in literature, so obviously it doesn't matter that much. So, right? Yeah.
I did okay still, despite that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, all right, I'm going to skip. I really fascinated by that, and I appreciate you giving that level of detail. We have a lot to get to, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, okay? I'm going to especially skip the part where you got an MBA from Ohio State University, because as we all know on here, we're Michigan fans, so we'll skip that part. But you're a very well-educated person from a certain school in Ohio, is that right?
That's correct. D school in Ohio.
All right. So was it, but actually, before I do that, you did actually run your own restaurant, or was that the same family restaurant?
When I graduated from college, me and my brother graduated together.
Your undergrad, right?
My undergrad, yeah.
Okay.
We graduated from undergrad together. He actually waited a couple of years for me to go to college because short detour, but basically we were still operating the restaurant that my dad had, and we can't afford to hire people. So rather than him going to school, he waited for me to go to finish high school, and then we went to undergrad together. We worked together in the restaurant for another year, 2 years, and then I went out and opened another restaurant. Basically, my brother got the restaurant, inherited the restaurant from my dad, and then they supported me to go out and open another restaurant in Toledo, Ohio, which was probably an hour and a half away, up north at the Michigan border.
Okay.
And then I started my own restaurant. I didn't build the building, but the building was just an empty space. So I went, scouted it out. I did all the construction. I did all the permitting to get it off the ground from basically an empty spot in a plaza, right? So it was a new place.
Was that always the plan? Because obviously you'd already gotten your master's degree in restaurant management because you were doing that from such a young age. So then you decide to go really put yourself out there and extend yourself and go to school and get a formal college degree. So I'm having a hard time picturing, why you would put yourself through that whole thing just to then go back into the restaurant business. Was that the plan, or was that
it was actually never the plan. My original plan is, hey, go through school and then go get a regular job and close a chapter on restaurant. I went through school. It changed. The plan changed because I was going through school. My degree was in operations management, so I was learning how to run more efficient operations. Whether it's queuing theory or linear optimization, doing things to kind of optimize operation. And I was thinking to myself, okay, the turning point I had was, if I go out to a job, I'm going to start from the ground floor. Maybe 4 or 5 years down the road, I'll get the steering wheel and I'll be able to apply a lot of what I learned. Or I can do what I already know. I have a decade plus experience in, and I can apply it day one. And I also knew that I know the restaurant, and I know that if you work hard, I can make good money, probably better money than I would for at least a few years if I were to go work for someone else as the entry level person for a few years. So that's what changed me. And honestly, funny story, side detour there, right? I got straight A's through school, right? My GPA was 3.97. I got only 1 B and 1 A minus, and they were all in my last semester. Basically, I decided, I'm going to go the restaurant path. I just let off the gas pedal. Before that, regardless of how hard the class is, I can always get the A. I'll work as hard as I need to get the A. But then toward the end, it's it doesn't really matter if I get that A anymore because I kind of lost that momentum a little bit. That's what happened.
Yeah. So you're well educated. You have 10 years of restaurant experience. Why is son Kwok not there with the likes of Wolfgang Puck and Gordon Ramsay? Why don't you have a restaurant empire today? Why are you doing what you're doing?
I did my restaurant. I operated for about 2 years. It wasn't necessarily anything to brag about in terms of how much money I make. I make a decent living, and I could have settled. And I saw a lot of. I have all my family. I don't think I told you this yet, but basically my whole family tree open restaurants. Like all my cousins, all my aunts, all my uncles, my cousins, everybody open restaurants. So like on the East Coast into the Midwest, there's probably 150 restaurants that's owned by somebody in my family. So everyone's in the restaurant business. And restaurant's hard. It is not necessarily the most glamorous life. You can work and retire probably pretty early, 50 or so, 40 some or so if you wanted to. I just felt like I kind of like look in my head and I fast forward a little bit and say, you know what? Is this the life that I want? And is that all I want? And or should I try something new? So maybe before I felt that I have a ready practice ground to practice all my things and all the things I learned and put it to practice and so forth. If I would have continued down that path, maybe I would have opened up something similar to Panda Express, maybe a little bit smaller, maybe 10 franchise, maybe 5, I don't know. But I kind of play that out in my head and say like, it's good. It still seems to be, I'm not quite extending myself to the full capability, at least in terms of like putting myself out there and trying new things. And I always, when I have a few, many times in my life, I reach points like those and I kind of reflect on what my parents did, right? I think, okay, son, your parents went from like, came to this country with like a couple suitcases and almost no cash with a couple little kids on their backs and in bad health into a country they don't even know the language of. Compared to that, are you really exerting yourself? Are you really trying? And at that point, I felt like I was basically cruising a little bit. And I felt that I owe it to, if nothing else, I owe it to my parents to try to do more with what I can do. Not to say that I'm going to be awesome in anything, but like, hey, at least I should try. So that's the main thing.
Man, the Kwoks are a bunch of risk. You guys are some regular stunt devil. You guys are some daredevils, man. That's what it sounds like to me. You guys are a bunch of risk takers.
I don't know about that for everyone, but I think just your perspective change, right? When you see people that's around you do things that are more risky, I think your tolerance level goes up.
That makes sense. So you're climbing. You're at the bottom of a corporate ladder. Right? In fields that you don't know anything about. And so now you're on your way. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but basically you pick supply chain, logistics, transportation. I think a lot of your professional experiences down that path. What led you in that direction to pursue that industry specifically?
Yeah. So operations management is what I studied. And then if you think about it, like operating a restaurant is general management, right? So like really operations is at the heart of everything I've done thus far. Right. And then I think that gel pretty well into a career in logistics, right? Logistics is really all about operations, making things happen. I think when I interviewed for that management trainee job at Conway Freight, they like what I bring to the table, right? This is someone that can run his own operation. He can figure things out. He's willing to work hard. So I got that job. I mean, just the job market back then, that was probably 2008? 2007. I think the job market back then was just as tough as the job market now, if not harder, right? I remember applying to everything and no one bit, right? So
what do you think, so when I think about just, again, people's career paths in general, I feel like you almost went in reverse. I feel like you started as an entrepreneur and then you made your way into the corporate world. And I feel like for the most part, it's the opposite, right? People spend a decade or two in the corporate environment and then they become entrepreneurs. So what was that like? Because I would imagine, as an entrepreneur, the big glitz and glamour of it is I'm my own boss, right? No one tells me what to do. I'm the boss. You're making the decisions, you're everything, right? And so now you find yourself in an environment where there's layers, I'm assuming, of organizational structure, there's SOPs, there's training, it's a very, very different environment, right? So did you get into that and were you just like, how did you acclimate yourself to that? Or were you just like, did that feel like the right decision? Or were you like, oh boy, this is going to be hard?
I think I realized pretty early on is that for everything that looks great, there's a side to it that's not that great. And for everything that looks terrible on the surface, there's a side to it that's great, right? So, I mean, take entrepreneurship, for example, right? Any entrepreneur you talk to that has been through will let you know that it's 10 times harder than being an employee. You're sweating and bleeding when other people are chilling at home watching Netflix. I mean, like through my years working in my parents' restaurant, we cleaned stuff that's so dirty still to think about it, right? Like there's like a lot of work, right? That we do ourselves. We work the hours that people will not work. I remember telling people like, hey, I work on average like, 80 hours a week. And people think, well, how can you work 80 hours a week? Well, it adds up, right? Like 13 hours a day. And then on the weekend, you work a couple hours more because it's a weekend. And it's 6 days a week. You take 1 day off. It adds up to 80. It's pretty straightforward. And restaurant, there's like, when you're the owner, you don't have anyone else to go back to, right? Like people can quit. People can say, hey, I don't feel well, but you can't. Like I distinctly remember when I had my own restaurant, there were at least 2 days where I did not sleep. 0. I just worked through the night because you have to. There was a day when the whole gang quit on me. So everybody quit. I was a restaurant of one.
Jeez.
What do? Do you cry about it, or do you make the best of it and just try to survive, right? So I did not sleep that night. I was rolling egg rolls. I was frying sweet and sour chicken. I was cooking the noodles and getting ready for next day. Did not sleep.
So in a way, then what I'm hearing, that's appreciate you sharing that, illustrating for us what that's like for us that haven't been entrepreneurs. So then in my mind, I'm almost picturing you get into this role, W-2, this paycheck that's going to come the same, no matter how hard you work, no matter how little you work, it's going to come in the same. You can take more time off. So did it almost feel like a vacation in a way? Like, did you feel like a weight had been lifted off your shoulders, or was it just?
I was still working at Conway Ferry, maybe like 10-hour work days, but it was such a breeze. I won't lie to you, right? Like going to the bar every day. I was learning all kinds of. I was learning how to dance salsa. I was learning horseback riding. I was learning how to ride motorcycle. I enjoyed life for a few years working because I think it was easy. I still work harder than everyone else, but it's just easy.
Yeah,
it's just easy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, you kind of were, you established a different baseline, right? And so that makes sense. So you've been on this journey now for collectively probably 16, 17 years, right? Kind of being in that corporate environment, and most of the time being spent, with us being coworkers together for a long time. I've watched you over the years just rise through the ranks. Some things that I could say is, now, having not known anything, right? I knew you owned a restaurant. I knew certain things about you, but a lot of the detail, this is the first time that I'm hearing it. It starts to make a lot more sense to me how and why you approach your position and the way that you operate within our environment the way you do. I should have asked you this years ago because it makes a lot more sense. But how do you look at it now because now it seems to me, getting to a vice president level in any multi-billion-dollar organization is not an easy thing to do. You've done it. But now in the context of everything you shared with me, it almost seemed like that was going to be a slam dunk anywhere you went, no matter what organization you went to. That being said, you had to put in the work to do it, right? And so I do want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you did to position yourself to get to this position that you're in today. Like, how did you approach it so that you could?
Sure. So I think working hard is a giving. I don't know if it may be lost on some of the newer folks joining the workforce right now, but I think to me, it was always, and most people in my generation, I think everyone knew that being willing to work hard is definitely a part of the secret sauce for anyone to be successful. I also make it a point to always learn new things. I think that was important. I think whether it is through my interaction, I genuinely wanted to learn new things, and along the way, not all at once, but every day, bit by bit, I'm learning a little bit about how procurement works. I'm learning a little bit about how folks in finance are doing things and how the planners are thinking. I think that definitely helps because it broadens your perspective a little bit. For my current position, I think I have always had a knack for being one of the more analytical people in the room. So I think I was able to leverage that to get results that was appreciated. So I think being able to connect the work itself to results is something that probably was a big part. Now that I'm talking, I never really think about it too much, but if I were to say what is one of the biggest things, I think is really connecting what you do with results. And I think because of my background, I have a great sense of urgency, and it frustrates me to no ends when things I do don't connect to results. If I'm doing work day in and day out or week in and week out, and I cannot connect that directly to something and say, hey, that's my contribution, that's happening because of what I do, I get super frustrated.
Well, I'm also, I haven't thought about this in a long time, but since we're having this conversation, I think there was this period in time, maybe, I don't even remember, maybe 7-8 years ago, where there's this big shakeup in terms of the organizational structure within supply chain. And now we're doing the people are situated differently, who's leading who is differently. The metrics that we're looking at, everything you could think of is changing. We're working for a very demanding leadership that it's fantastic, right? We're sitting in these rooms, I think at the beginning every day for a couple hours, just kind of talking through everything, all the transitions that we were going through and making sure that we're getting it right. Cause we're basically trying to shift the Titanic. This organization was already in several billions of dollars. And so, but now we're saying, let's flip the processes and the org, everything. Let's flip it on its head and let's almost start from scratch in a way. And so we did that. And we're sitting in these rooms and having to kind of put these things together. And one thing I do remember about that time is there's a lot of work on everybody's plates, and there would be certain things that would come up that I think you'd look around would be asked of us, and you'd say, okay, we need to do this. And there'd be kind of these looks around the room of just I don't want to do that. Right. That one's, I don't know. And then who, you look over and whose son Kwok's over in the corner raising his hand, I'll do it. Right. And that probably happened more times than I can count, right? Where it's just you kind of knew there were certain things that people were really interested in, and I fall into this trap where if there's a project or something going on that I'm really interested in, I'm going to dive in head first, and I'm going to deliver you the results that you want. And every once in a while, there's these projects that come around, just this one really doesn't, this one isn't, I'm not feeling this one, right? And so, I maybe say, hey, look, I want to keep focusing here. And so I think you're not that person, right? It's just hey, you're kind of the ultimate company man where it's hey, whatever the org is asking of me, that's what I'm going to do. It's a very selfless act. And so I don't know if that was deliberate on your part, if that's just part of your upbringing, but I feel that at least played a role. It certainly wasn't everything because you're very talented in many other ways, but I feel that's one thing that stood out to me about you.
Yeah, I think I don't know why per se, but I think maybe it was just the fact that it needed to be done. If I see something that needs to be done and it has value, I'll do it. As simple as that. So
simple as that, guys. Do you hear that? Just do it. Just do it. Just like Nike says, just do it. One of the things that I've been fascinated about lately is kind of this concept of the American dream. And again, I was born here, so I have a certain idea of what I think it is or what it's supposed to be or how I'm defining it. And I've been more and more curious lately about, for those that haven't been born in the US that come here seeking a better life or better opportunities, you just, at least for me, I watch the news, I read articles, and I just get this sense that it's becoming increasingly more difficult. And maybe I'm getting this wrong, but just there was this moment in time where people felt if I could just get to the US, then all my dreams are going to come true. I'm going to be a homeowner and I'm going to get to retirement. I'm going to enjoy a long and fruitful retirement. I'm going to live a healthy life and this and that. And just at least what's happening in the media, it just seems like that dream is even for those of us that were born here, that is becoming more and more out of reach for us. And so I'm just curious if you feel that way as well. If you feel for those that are now coming over today or have come in the last couple of years, do you feel like that's the case? Or do you feel hey, if you just come with the right attitude, you can still have the American dream? How do you feel about that? I'm
more of the camp that the opportunities are still there. I would not go as far as to say they're easier now than it was before. It's you know what, before it was so much harder. You had to work so much harder to get to the same place. And now you can just go and do Instacart and just go do Uber and just go do whatever it is. And it's so much easier to find a job, right? I wouldn't say that, but I would say it's definitely in my mind no harder than it was before to be successful and go after your American dream. I think the programs in place for social programs are just as robust, if not more robust than before. One will argue, are they too robust, right? But you really, you can come to this country and do nothing and you'll be in a great spot. Do nothing and you'll survive. You can watch TV all day.
Yeah.
And I think everyone can have a good life if that's what you call good life. I don't really think it's harder. I think it's always been hard. And if anything, I think the past was maybe a little harder than it is now.
So maybe it's not the work that's changed. I think more what I'm talking about is the cost of living, right? So for example, owning a home, if I got to a management level and I'm making, let's say, even if it's low six figures, that could lead to a very successful life. And that's becoming more and more of a struggle. So like I said, I've talked to people from different countries. So for example, somebody let's say coming from India, where obviously the cost of living is much lower, but they're telling me, when I go home, I've got somebody that does my laundry, somebody cooks my food, somebody comes and walks my dog. Again, in my mind, because I've never been there, right? So it's just like, man, that sounds like a pretty good life. So why the heck would you come here to come live in a condo in Irvine and like really struggle to try to like make it here when it seems like there's, just as many opportunities where you're from? Again, ignorance on my part, probably because I don't know anything about it, but like, does that make sense to you? Do you like?
It does, and it's it's not as clear because I think some of it, when we think through it, is somewhat contradictory, and I honestly don't know why, right? I think it's just part of life, right? Sometimes it's one of the mysteries of life, right? But like, for one, I would say like cost of living in the U.S., at least based on the perspective I have looking at elsewhere, I feel like cost of living is pretty low. So I'm of the opinion that like cost of living is low, and here's why, right? Like if I were to look, I know people from China, right? So I look at people from China, the ratio is like 1-6, 1-7 for the US dollar to the Chinese yuan. But then if you were to look at the price of things in China, they're basically, if you adjust for the difference in the exchange rates, like double the cost of the US. So the way I always tell people is like, hey, imagine you go to grocery store overnight, everything, all the price double. But that's life for everyone in China. Everything is more expensive. I mean, a jug of milk is not $3-4. It's like $12. That's normal, right? Like, if you want to buy a loaf of bread, it's going to be $15. This is the way it is. So
I think part of it for me, again, what from the media is, you're hearing about China. It's like, hey, this is an up and coming country. They've got a lot of construction. They're investing in other countries. Like they're on the left side of that bell curve, right? So do you feel like, and I know you don't live there anymore, but like, I don't know if you hear from family members or anything like that. Are the opportunities improving for them there to where coming to the U.S. is making less and less sense? Or is it like, oh no, if you have the chance to come, you should definitely come?
I would definitely say it's the former, right? I do feel that things have improved enough that the urgency, the push for people to come to the U.S. is lower than it has been in the past. It's a place where a lot of people are flocking to, right? It's one of the places where there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of growth. And I do think that people are less inclined now to move than it was before, whether it is to go to school here in the US or go to school in Australia or London. People aren't it's not as appealing as it was. If anything else, what I've seen, at least from what I see and hear, right, it's like, hey, it's the rich people, rich families' kids where they go out to kind of have fun overseas in an offshore school in a first world country to just kind of get that fancy degree and come back and inherit their family empire, as opposed to the stories of like, hey, someone who's from the village and scraping together the money necessary from all the relatives and friends so that they can come over here and eat peanut butter every day in order to survive, right? It's not that anymore. It's actually the other. So I do think that because of the country becoming better off, the push and urgent need for people to come over has subsided substantially.
Okay, that makes sense. And when you just kind of tying a bow on the family piece, so as I'm thinking about your journey and your family, it's like your parents gave that first big push, and I'm just picturing them. They put son Kwok on their shoulders. They said, here, son, I'm going to give you the next jump start, to get to the next level. You've clearly been successful in doing that. Now you've got 2 daughters of your own. You've set the bar that much higher, right? So how do you now approach that with your kids? And like, what do you tell them about, if anything, about where their family came from and kind of this whole journey to get to this point?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. So I think none of us is born knowing how to parent. I'm no exception to that. And I think I have taken different approach, and I have reflected on it and changed my approach a couple of times, right? In terms of like what I tell them about the family, I try to tell them what happened and who we are and how we got here. They don't have the same perspective. While I can tell them the story, it's not the same as living through it. It's completely diluted, right, from an effect standpoint. But I still do where it makes sense. I think it's really in the moment, right? When you're like, hey, when you have a bunch of food that you're throwing away, or you are like buying clothes that you don't need, or you have a whole closet full of toys. Those are the moments that when I kind of tell them, hey, just so you know, I always wear all my cousin's clothes. I never bought my own clothes from the store. That was the way I did. And oh, by the way, I bunked bed with my brother all the way college. I never had my own room, and that's okay, right? So I think there's still value.
Do you get the eye roll, okay, Dad, or is it like, do you feel like it's like resonating with them at all?
I try not to say it too often, because I do think if you say too often, they will roll their eyes at you. I think sometimes less is more. So I think I have deliberately kept the repetition level down a little bit so that it does not become that, because I don't want, the whole point I'm saying it is I'm not saying it to make myself feel better, right? So that's why I tell myself, if you want to make yourself feel better, son, then go ahead and say it all day long, right? But if your whole point is to impact them and make them think and make them change the way of thinking, then guess what? Less is more. So I think I try. Paul, I can't promise I did it real well, but I do think that there have definitely been multiple instances where I tell myself, you know what, you said enough, you don't need to say it all the time, and I don't do that. Yeah.
Can you think of a moment in time with either of your daughters where you felt where they either did something or said something where you felt like, okay, they get it?
So sometimes, my wife is in the financial consulting business now. She's changed her own business, and last 4 years she's been an entrepreneur, right? And as a part of that, I think we have been exposing our kids to a wider range of people from different socio-economic status in the house. There's folks who are much more affluent than us in the house. There's also folks who are much less affluent than us in the house. So I would say that, for example, one time, one such family was in our house. They were visiting. We were hosting a party for a group of new folks that my wife was helping, call them members, call them clients. And and my daughter was interacting with their daughter, who's exactly the same age. And then I think she was a little confused as to hey, there are things that I have that this person doesn't have. I think I could have told her that, hey, there's folks who have less than you. But I think she saw with her own eyes that they have less than her, right? Like that family, dad was an illegal immigrant who paint houses for a living. Sometimes he has jobs, sometimes he doesn't. And then the wife was like an analyst level 1. And they have 6 kids, 2 from each of their prior marriage, and then 2 together. And then they were I think the one that was in our house, she was one of the older ones. She takes care of her 5 other siblings and feeding them and clothing them, and they all share the clothes, and they don't really have that many toys. I think when that daughter, that little girl was in our house and she saw everything Gemma have, I think she was also in shock, of just how different this world could be. And maybe I'm fair, right? The whole 6 of them don't have a fraction of what Gemma has, let alone Gemma and Skylar, right? So I do think those are moments when I think they get it, and I think it really needed to become more tangible, right? And I think that in that moment it became more tangible for my daughter. So I think when we talk about, hey, we have too much toys, we gotta donate some of them to Goodwill, or Vietnam Veterans of America, my older daughter get it now.
Yeah, that's where my oldest son's birthday this week actually, and getting him the video game, 7 years old, so getting into video games and things like that. And as I'm buying them, just in the back of my mind, I'm just I want to get you this thing.
And you could, absolutely, yeah.
But I can, but at the same time, it's just I really don't want to get to a place where you become ungrateful or don't understand. And he's he's maybe too young too, right? And maybe I'm putting too much on him to understand that. Yes. I'm constantly in fear of that exact thing, right? And so I think what you're opening my eyes to is, if I can verbalize things, great, but really we need to give our kids experiences. They need to be immersed in something for the message to really resonate. And that's not something that I've thought about or at all. But it's now something I think we need to think about, because I just don't, I really don't want them to lose sight of that. I can recall sometimes being a kid and being that brat, right? That was not grateful for things that were given to me. And I am very grateful now, knowing how much work went into acquiring those things. But that's just something that I just am constantly, there's great upside to, having built and then like you said, right, everything, there's a downside. And to me, that's one. It's just how do we balance making sure that our kids remain grounded in a place where they can be, great people that aren't, materialistic and focused on those sorts of things, right?
Yeah. Easier said than done. It's really, I don't think any of us have it figured out. I think we can do the best we can. We flat on it and see how we can do better and just keep trying, right? Keep it improving. That's really all we can. And then talk to each other, this podcast, right? Share the network. Let's share our collective knowledge and learn from each other.
I love it, son. Well, hey, it's unfortunate. I've known you for so long, and I've probably 70% of 80% of what we discussed today I've never known. So I think I'm a bad friend. So I apologize for that.
No.
Thank you.
I never asked for the same level of detail from you either. I think it's just sometimes it's awkward, right? At the workplace, how far do you want to pry, right? And I think it's just different. I think
as far as you want, son. You pry as much as you want. But no, I really appreciate it, son. And thank you for sharing your story. And I'll see you Monday in the office.
Sounds great. You have a good weekend.
The Rockies ain't too far from here if we drive all night. The cold air will do you well in the mountain morning light. So let's ride on through the rain. Come on and take me anywhere that you wanna be. Let's ride, let's follow the skyline.